community needed, because that's everything I'm about, is trying to pull the community together and balance them. And I saw a lot of discord and started doing my own research and diving deep. And then I ran into some research that I had seen that Donna had done, and reached out to her, started looking at the numbers and the facts and coming to my own conclusions. And I really felt like this was something that the people needed more information about and more education. And so here we are. And we're going to watch a video done by Chuck Tyler for us.
A lot of people are talking about home rule right now. And we have an election here in Sedona on August 2nd, where we, the people of Sedona, have the responsibility of either voting home rule in or voting it out. Now, we have the City Council trying desperately to tell all the citizens of Sedona to vote for home rule. But a lot of Sedona citizens are against home rule. So what is home rule, and why should we care about it? We're going to take a look at what home rule is, and then we'll show you what the ballot is going to look like, so you're ready for it. To understand home rule, we need to first understand how the state of Arizona gives Sedona a budget to follow, the state's budget guideline. This guideline is called baseline. The state also refers to this as the state-imposed expenditure limitation. With baseline, the state allows Sedona to have a set amount of money, let's say $35 million for the year. But if that's not enough for us, if the Sedona City Council, for instance, wants an additional $20 million, the City Council would then put together a proposal and present it to we, the people of Sedona. And that additional $20 million can be approved by a vote of the people if we decide it's a good idea. This is called a one-time override, and it's called that because we can decide to override the budget and increase it once a year in May. And we can do it every year to increase the state-imposed limitation to whatever we, the people, want it to be. With baseline, we can always get all the money we need for the city, and we, the people of Sedona, will always be informed and involved in what changes are being made in our city. Projects will never be initiated without us first knowing about it, deciding what we want, and then voting it in or voting it out. So, if that's baseline, what is home rule? Home rule is an alternative to baseline. Baseline is the state-imposed expenditure limitation, and home rule is the alternative expenditure limitation. What home rule does is it takes out the part of the process where the City Council has to ask us permission to spend the money on something. They don't have to tell us, the people of Sedona, anything. They can do whatever they want with the city budget, and we, the people of Sedona, are not involved at all. It's like handing them our credit card and then looking the other way. This process gives all the power to the city employees and none to the people of Sedona. You can see why the City Council is so intent on getting all of us in Sedona to hand them all of our power. With home rule, we have no voice. If we vote home rule in on August 2nd, how long does it last? If we vote home rule in, it stays in place for 4 years before we can vote on it again. Think about how many changes can be made to Sedona without your permission in 4 years. Look at what has happened in the last 4 years without your permission that has been damaging our community. Home rule has been in effect for years. In the last year alone, the population of Sedona has dropped, but the city decided to add over $1 million in paychecks for new city employees. We're getting smaller, and they're getting bigger. What can I do about this? If you want your voice back, vote no on home rule on August 2nd. If you want the city to ask you what you want, instead of doing whatever they want with the money, then vote no on home rule on August 2nd. They need you to vote home rule in on August 2nd, so they can keep all of their unlimited power and keep you out of the process. Get out and vote no on home rule on August 2nd. Take just a little bit of time and take your city back. Get out and vote no on home rule on August 2nd. Now, on voting day, the wording on the ballot can be very confusing, so let's go through what you'll see on the ballot. Here's the ballot from 4 years ago, but this year's ballot is going to look pretty much the same. If you need some more time to read through any of this, just pause the video. There will be a proposition proposing an extension of the alternative expenditure limitation. This is the home rule proposition. This year, it's called Ballot Measure 458. You'll see that voting yes will extend home rule, taking away your voice for 4 more years. And voting no will end home rule for the next 4 years, taking us back to baseline and allowing us to decide what's best for our city. Notice here how the description of a no vote doesn't mention anything about we the people of Sedona being able to use the annual override to increase the budget. This wording can be confusing, but don't be fooled. The state's imposed expenditure limitation will allow us all the money we want, and it will be your decision, not the city employees. You'll also find on the ballot a summary analysis of home rule. This is supposed to explain to you exactly what home rule is. The wording here can be confusing as well, so let's look at it. The numbers listed in this summary make it look like home rule gets the city of Sedona more money, and that the state expenditure limitation, baseline, gets the city less money. But once again, it leaves out the ability of the people of Sedona to use the annual override to approve all the money we want and need. It also leaves out the part where, with home rule, the city does not have to get our approval for what they do with our budget. Again, with home rule, they have all the power over all the money, and we have no voice. The state expenditure limitation is designed to keep the people of the city involved. Home rule is not. So read the ballot carefully. Take your time, educate yourself, empower yourself, and then decide for yourself. If you want your voice back, if you want to decide what happens to Sedona using your tax money, then vote no on home rule August 2nd. If you found this video helpful, please consider donating a few bucks to the links below. And leave me a comment with the Sedona topics you'd like me to cover next.
Okay, yes. That basically, is a very good video to kind of help the people who have no clue as to what home rule is. Actually, kind of take notice that we need to be paying attention. To me, this is the most important vote on the ballot. So,
and it's going to really change our community significantly. Just a quick, before we go into this, the budget dollars originally on the video should have been $42.8 million this year going into it, and they're asking for $112 million. So that is the difference. So when they estimated home rule 42.8 in the pamphlet to 112, that's outrageous to me. Okay, this video we kind of changed things up, and this video is actually introducing Just Facts. We are a public nonprofit, which means we have to follow all the rules by the IRS. And our mission statement is to promote the public awareness and education by providing a foundation of fact-based, objective research and analysis to educate and engage the public in informed discussions. And we are a nonprofit, 501c3, so we do take donations. You can write it off as a tax deduction. And then if we can click to the next slide. And I'll give you a little bit of history. In 2000, maybe 8, different groups of people were getting together. Things started to look funny in Sedona. We couldn't quite figure out what was what. And it was really a very diversified group. Sometimes we met at the library. Sometimes we would watch at a coffee shop. And sometimes we'd come to my place. We just kind of moved around, and the group kind of varied, but there's some people that, Mike Schrader, Dwight Kadar, Henry Twomley, Gene Jenks, some people that you may recognize their name. And it was very interesting because we would sit around and try and dissect out all these different elements. And we couldn't quite figure out what the heck was going on here in Sedona. And then finally, I started meeting with a lot of state legislators and writing them and telling them we need change here, something's wrong. And one of them actually suggested this model as a place of balance. So this type of nonprofit, while we can make an opinion on a policy such as home rule, we cannot endorse or slander a candidate, but we can most certainly report how elected officials vote, and we do. So the sunset tax that was passed last year, they voted, the only one that voted no was Tom Lampkin, and we have a couple infographics on Sedona News Report. But moving forward, the first slide said just facts, and it was really big, but if you get the facts, but you don't share the facts, you're nowhere. So the next portion of this is to take those facts and data and make sure that they're fact-checked and realistic, and then try and get groups of people engaged, working on things, and then you come up with great videos, great collateral to show people on what kind of action can you do to make a change. If we don't get engaged and we don't simplify things and have groups of people, and groups of people bond with other groups of people, like a PAC with an educational or another organization, maybe environmental, if we don't work together for the same common cause, we're going to lose, because the power is right now with the groups that are getting financially enriched by the taxes. So with that being said, tomorrow is going to be a very interesting work group here at between 4 and 6, and we're going to get into a lot of the details. And then now we'll get into, and then this one, if you notice really, the little corner says Henry Twomley. On that, he passed away in 2018. He battled really hard for a no on home rule. He was one of the board of directors. I founded Just Facts. And he was so upset that we couldn't get a no on home rule. But he was the one of our last meetings, is he kept on saying, we forgot the act in facts. And so that's why the act is in red on behalf of Henry. Not moving. Yeah, it's on there. There we go. Okay.
Okay, and when we go in here, we've got the State Arizona Auditor General. The Auditor General, he is the one that basically sets the rules on the whole budget for the state baseline. And that basically, we hear a lot about, we're giving our power away to the state. If we don't have home rule, we're giving our power away to the state. We hear that on a regular basis. The reality is state baseline is put into place not for state to have control of our money or control of anything we're doing. It's to protect the voice of the people. And if you don't completely trust those who are at the helm handling your checkbook, home rule is not the way to go. There's other alternatives that we can utilize. Go ahead.
Okay, so the state, you look at that big word, state expenditure limitation. What the heck is that? The words are so big that people get a little stumbled, and then they can't comprehend what they are. But it's a very simple calculation. It's based off of population and inflation, and this doesn't stop there. And that's what the city would like you to believe, that the numbers stop with what those two figures, and that's not true. What adds to it is the expenditures, the debt, and any voter-approved items. And it has some really great possibilities, because if you don't have home rule, you can actually do a one-time override but it has to be requested by city council. It must be approved by the voters. It can be in any amount, and typically it is introduced with purposes and a grand total. You vote on the grand total, but you should be informed on what the purposes are.
And that's another thing that they keep saying. You're only going to get to vote yes or no. You're only going to get to vote yes or no. But the thing is once we get home rule out, at that point, they've got to come to the table for cooperation with the people. So it's going to be prudent for them to come to the table and let us know what are those things that they're wanting to put in the budget. And there are definitely things that I'm sure we'll want to add to the budget. So if it's done correctly and we can come together as a community and cooperate, the people can actually put a lot of pressure on them to do the right thing as well. And that's what this whole thing is for, is to kind of join the community together, and it doesn't stop at home rule. We have to be prudent on a regular basis for our community. We can't get lax and go to sleep and let the people at the helm run it by themselves. They need people's input. We have to be involved as a community on a regular basis with what is going on here in Sedona. In any city, you need to stay involved in your community. So we want to get that momentum going. We have multiple groups that are doing just that and trying to pull the people together. And what this is about is to weave it all together. Let's weave the groups' purposes together. Each one is strong in their own right, and we want the and the groups to pull together to stand strong and make our voices heard.
And I'm just going to add one more thing. The policy and process is driven by the state auditor general. And the one-time override specifically says they must include the purposes for that one-time override. So when the city tells you you're not going to be able to know what it's for, that's not so. And we have to be firm and we have to be strong. And moving forward, if they say that, then we're going to take the document and send it to them, hand it to them.
They can be vague or they can be specific. And we're going to, let's demand specific. So. And then we have the alternative expenditure limitation options. And these must be voter approved. And that's why the city council has come back to us to ask, can they keep home rule in for another 4 years? Well, let's look at, I've been here 3 years. And I had visited here before that, and I see a drastic difference just in the time when I moved here to now. The city has changed in a drastic fashion. It's like the taxes that were imposed, they talk about we didn't know that through the pandemic we were going to have such a mad rush of visitors, and our taxes were going to go, our income from the taxes would go way, way high. So we've got the money, why not spend it? Well, we're having a downturn in the market. Number one, it's projected. We've hit the high. We're going to start going down at this point. We don't know what's going to happen. And our actual, construction costs are high. Everything is high right now. So is this the best time to decide to spend what we have, or do we need to kind of let's see what's going to ride out? Nothing has to be done this minute. Don't let the money burn a hole in our pocket. We're okay with the savings account for a minute, and let's take a pause on what's going on and look at this again from a new viewpoint, from the residents that are here now, from the residents that are ready to go to the polls and vote for the future that they want for Sedona.
And I do want to bring up one point about the sales tax during the pandemic. Most people have heard the tourists drove those sales tax in. No way. You were in lockdown. Everything delivered to your house got city sales tax. So you did contribute. And not only did the items that got delivered to your house, but if you had construction or any one of those items and you got charged for material, those had the sales tax on top of it. And what happens in this city, because the big box stores see Sedona as one unit, the people in the village and the unincorporated are charged sales tax for the city of Sedona, and they have to request it back. If they don't request it back, the city keeps it. And for the most part, very few people request the money back because it's on cell phones or it's from Amazon. They don't really pay attention. It's in a lump sum. And they don't know that they've been charged a sales tax. But that is true. So the residents from the region pay the sales tax in a lot of cases.
So in addition to our ability to go to the one-time override, we can also look at the permanent base adjustment once home rule is off the books. We can look at that permanent base adjustment, which basically will allow us to kind of assess things and do similar to what we just did in the one-time override, but kind of say, here's what we need. Well, here's what we see we need on a regular basis for our city to operate off of. And you go and vote for that permanent base adjustment, and then that permanent base stays in effect. It doesn't have to get voted on again every year, and it also increases due to population and inflation. So, and then you have what we've been operating under, the home rule, and that basically is like turning over your credit cards or your checkbook right to your leaders and saying, we trust you and we're just going to go do our own thing. We don't need to vote on our taxes. We don't, we're not going to police you. And, they raise the taxes as they see fit. They spend the money as they see fit.
I recently talked to Camp Verde. They went from state baseline to permanent base. And in our conversation, I asked them, why did you go to permanent base? And he said, oh, it was nice. We had put in a wastewater system. We bought a water company, and we really needed to increase that baseline to a certain level that made us feel comfortable about our services. And then I said, why did you not go to home rule? He went, oh, that's too much. It's too much confusion. You have to vote every 4 years. Baseline or permanent base is so much more stable. You don't have to go to the residents every 4 years and ask him for a vote for a yes on home rule. So in watching cities and towns, more cities and towns are moving to permanent base because I believe permanent base is more stable. You know what to expect. You don't have budgets going from 62 million to 112 in 1 year. You have more consistent flow of things.
And you can still utilize your one-time override on permanent base. So if there was a big expenditure that was needed, you could still address that. And again, here's just what the ballot looks like. We went over that in the video pretty well, so I'm going to just kind of move right on through this, I think.
It's just yes or no. There's
Yeah.
Yes, you want home rule? No, you don't.
But who is it that benefits from home rule? You got your city staff, your city employees, the city vendors, the city grant recipients, and private companies. And the private public contracts like you see with the Chamber of Commerce, which in the chamber meeting today for their budget, you could see that we finally seem to start realizing at the city level that something needs to change here. They were referring to being in a transitional year and what the implications were. Well, not just implications, they were pretty much stating the tourism department will have to be clawed back out of the Chamber of Commerce authority, that they won't be overseeing it anymore, is what it appears to me.
Yeah. They're not a voter approved tourism authority or district, and that's really clear. So they were a Chamber of Commerce. They signed up for a trade name in 2014 called Tourism Bureau, but they're not a district. They only people paying into that chamber contract are the city of Sedona and their members. And our businesses are getting those taxes imposed on them, and the chamber gets the money, and Mark gets their competition outside the city limits. And that's not cool, and that's not acceptable.
And it was very apparent at the meeting today that they are now realizing that, the chamber really is only supposed to be marketing their members. And the city needs them to be marketing the city. And it's just a conflict of interest. And the public-private contracts we enter into in a no-bid thing, all of them have that same issue that we have to address.
But we can't let this one go because it really does hurt our small businesses in Uptown. They have a visitor center that we fund, and we funded since 2014 100%. And they actually sell things at that store. So those small little shops not too far, their operation nets them $50K. And I'm sure a business owner or two business owners would love to get that profit of 50K and share it. So we're drawing from the people that are imposed the taxes. We've removed their voice from the conversation. They're not allowed to say yes or no for the chamber. And we're applying just a obnoxious project on them without any consideration or respect. So I am really charged on this issue. I think it's wrong, and I'm going to keep on fighting until our businesses, and I don't have a business. I have nothing now. I'm retired. I have no conflicts of interest. I don't get paid, but I can speak openly. I don't have to worry about people saying, she's got a conflict of interest, because I don't. I simply don't. But I do feel it's horribly unfair for us as a city to tax a group of people. They have no voice, nothing. They can't do anything about it. And then we give it to a third-party private organization of memberships and let them run with it and advertise their competition. It's wrong. And it's done nowhere in this state or any other state.
And that, just to bring it all back around to the home rule, that would not have been able to be implemented as it was without home rule in effect.
Correct. If we were on state baseline, it would have been prohibited because they wouldn't have had such ridiculous amounts of money. But to go back in time, in 2013, the Chamber and the Lodging Council came up with this idea. Let's go to City Hall and tell them to raise the bed tax 0.5%. And if we raise the bed tax 0.5%, we want 55% of the tax for us. And guess what? The City Council voted it in. I was the only one at that meeting that said, do not do this. And I had a room of 100 chamber members. And I was alone. And we can't make change that way. And so, yes, while the AG did require them to claw back part of that contract, the 55%, the 55% still exists on the chamber's contract today. They never quite pulled it back.
I'll go back to the city employees. We might talk about that a little bit more because we did add multiple positions why we were in the pandemic and why our population was decreasing by, a lot. 44% I think that we have dropped. And no, it's like as we dropped in population, the city employees increased by 44%. And that we added another, just last year, I think it was, another $1 million in wages on this to the city.
For 10 people.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And the average income of the Sedonan is far under what the average wage is for our employees at this point in Sedona. Do I think they deserve a good, great wage? Maybe so, but we need to look at it.
But think about the numbers. You have the average household around the 57K a year for a family of 2.4 or 2.1. And then you have a city manager making 180, 100K. They get a car, they get a phone, they get education paid for, retirement, health care. It's just not balanced. And the numbers crunch to be like $1 million, $100,000 for the average city employee plus benefits. Well, that's double the income of a family here. So there has to be some kind of balance.
And it's like our voting populace completely changes at that point in time as well. When it's like when they're growing in our population and the population, the average resident is declining, it changes the voice of the people.
We do have, for every 59 residents, we have one city employee. If we looked at the city of Flagstaff and we were told, we got criticized for saying that out loud in the first one, and that was just, we have to have that because of tourism. So I said, okay, well, who has more tourism than us? Flagstaff. Let's check that out. And you get on their website and they say, your highest industry is tourism. They have 116, one employee for 116. And The average for Sedona should be around 95, and their average should be about 112. So when it's all based off of the size of the city. So while they can really do well and keep their managerial portion of the city under control, Sedona does not. It's just not stable.
And so why vote no on home rule? It allows us to pause what's going on right now in Sedona. It gives the residents a voice and a vote in our destiny, and it keeps the people informed and connected, and it returns the power back to the voters.
And the pause is really, it should happen one day after. So anything that's a multi-year contract should be frozen immediately until they understand how much money they have, how much money they're going to get in a one-time or a permanent base.
And so what's next after a no vote? So that's what she was talking about. Day one, after that no vote, it should pause all multi-year projects, and the current budget should be reassessed. We will reevaluate Sedona's priorities, policies, and initiatives, and then we'll be able to start planning the base of the budget for the 2023-24 year. And we can evaluate the next level priorities as a secondary level budget, and the city council can then review the options of a one-time override and the permanent base after home rule fails. City council then decides what to take to the voters. And so what would that be? It would be, are we going to do the one-time override, or are we going to go ahead and look at the permanent base adjustment as we move forward? And what's next for service-related items after a no vote? The library is one thing that you hear on a regular basis, the Sedona Library District. It mirrors our Sedona school districts and our fire districts, and they are paid through our district property taxes. The tax returns of the library for Sedona shows that over $6 million in assets exist for them. And they are required, the required services such as police, and they're required by Title IX, cities and towns. So those are, they're required items. They can't go away. We're not going to lose our police department. And if they see that we need more to operate our police department than what we have in the budget, that's definitely an issue that the people would support if they brought it to a vote of the people.
And this is only up because this is a scare tactic. They like to say you're going to lose the library. But the library, the documents are on Sedona News Report. Both Yavapai and Coconino, it's the Sedona Library District. And it's taken out of the property taxes for every household. So the other thing they like to scare you is that the police won't get funded, or that there won't be enough firemen for the fire district. And those are just scare tactics to get you to vote yes, because we love those services and we don't want to lose any.
Well, and those services being districts, they actually come through those property taxes. So when they need more money than what they're getting, the proper procedure is for them to go to a vote at the district level to the people, for the people to approve them to have more funding. And when the city actually determines they're going to give it to them themselves, then without a vote of the people, they're actually putting us under what would be called double taxation. It would be double taxation, because we're getting taxed through the city and through the county, and that's pretty much a double taxation.
So what they do is every year they do a service agreement with the Sedona Public Library, and they give them anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 as they see fit. So the people inside the city limits are getting the double taxation. There is a library annex in the village of Oak Creek now, quite a large one. It moved into the old school out there.
And we all love the library. It's just if they need more funding, the people are here to fund it, in the right way. So if they need more, they just need to come ask for more. But they have like $1.5 million coming in through their district taxes. Through Yavapai and Coconino counties at this moment. So it was like 1.5 million last year.
1.5 and 6 million in assets in the bank and stock and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty good, 6 million.
And so we have some benchmarks here. I'll let you look at that.
Yeah, I like benchmarks. I think benchmarks and numbers tell us the truth. And so when we look at just the numbers, I try to crunch a lot on that. I probably redo the slide and make it a little bigger or easier to read. But our population is going down. And then I grabbed Village of Oak Creek and some surrounding areas. I pulled Prescott and Flagstaff a little closer because they're critical, because they have a very vital tourism and a strong policy for tourism that is a perfect model for Sedona to go on with. But when we look at services, Sedona only has wastewater and police. And when we go across, the Village of Oak Creek has a wastewater, and they're not even incorporated. So when we go to the other numbers across, you can see the strong cities have a lot of services they provide. And then when you go to the next level, the finance method they're operating on is underneath that. And you think, wow, this one's home rule, this one's got state baseline. What's the difference? There's a real critical factor, and that's where we can all work together, is if you go to the line that says who approves the taxes, that is the pivot point. So when you look at Flagstaff and you look at Prescott, the voters approve the sales tax rate. And when we don't, the city council does. So they raised the bed tax on their own without the vote or input of the businesses. And then they put in the sunset tax because they wanted to increase money to pay for Sedona in Motion. And then that sunset tax was voted in as a permanent tax. Well, when the taxes go up, they have more to spend and more revenue coming in, and home rule allows them to spend every one of those increased cents, every dollar they can spend. So it makes sense. You raise the money, you have a bigger budget, you can spend more. So, but both of those organizations, and I particularly like Prescott because Prescott has been very clear. They're both charter cities. Charter cities are very good on policy, but their tourism policy is nice, clear, fair, accurate, and that is the model we should go to, and that is the model I'm kind of pushing every time I can on city council. So it is not via Chamber of Commerce. It's a small addition, a one-person addition to the economic department, and you have one clerk, and then what you do is you go out to your in-city businesses only. You get tourism-related businesses, and usually they're anywhere from 8 to 15 people, and you add a few residents in there. They come up with a solid policy. They submit the policy to the city council, and the city council approves it or disapproves it, and it controls the amount of money that can be used to market tourism. It is intended to keep the playing field balanced, but it's supposed to be addressing the impacts of tourism, not 100% marketing. So that's the reason for that being there, but we can go back at any point if anybody wants to see like Prescott or something like that, I can send it to you. And so basically we're just saying this is pretty much the end of it. We're going to open it up for conversation. It's just a reminder of Just Facts is a nonprofit and our mission statement. We have a lot of work ahead of us, so even if home rule fails and we have no home rule, we have to assist and we have to make sure that those policies at City Hall need to be changed. They are not good for the people and they're not good for our businesses, and we cannot be healthy with the policies that are currently imposed on us at City Hall.
I do want to address one more thing about the grants. It's like as our budget inflates and goes up to this 112 whatever million it's going to be when they finalize it here shortly, so does our ability to take out grants. Our borrowing power, so to speak, also rises, and that actually what happens if we go out there on inflated numbers because we have extra in the bank right now and we raise that and we take out a lot of grants and there's some more grants in the deal. We're adding another 10 million at least to it. Is hiked up to like 50 or bonds. I'm sorry, I'm saying grants. I mean bonds. We're talking about bonds. And so suddenly it's like you got $52 million in bonds out there, and that's what's on this budget is 52 million in bonds. And that basically, if something happens, the market downturns and we don't have that money in the bank and we end up defaulting, who is responsible for the default? Who's responsible? We are. The residents, and we've had that calculated out, and it was right at
About 55 per resident, 11 for a household. And it's not a little bit of money, and people don't realize city council mess up, city staff messes up, you pay, not them.
yes, 50,
Yeah,
55.
I'm sorry.
It's yeah, it's 50.2 million in bonds, I think, that they
Divided
have on there.
population.
And when you take that divided, throughout the population, it was 55,000 or 55. What was it? 5,000, 5,500. I'll say that right. 5,500 per person. So.
So seriously, when we look at that, the small businesses should be concerned, the residents should be concerned because the liability will fall on the residents, but the small businesses are being overcharged in the tax portion, and they don't even realize they are, in order to give more money to build more things via home rule, and the impacts and how that hurts their businesses and their ability to make money they've got to suffer. Most people don't realize that the city of Sedona charges 3.5% sales tax on commercial rents. And when you're talking a $10,000 rent or a $20,000 rent, it's not a little bit. Those small businesses, everything they get delivered, including equipment, gets charged sales tax, 3.5% for the city and the remainder for the state. So the sales tax is a huge cost of living, and it really does affect our community.
Well, and it affects our in-city businesses as being competitive with the people that are outlying that. And right now, we have been, allowing the chamber to come in and market for the city instead of just, the in-city. They're marketing for a regional area of businesses and making it a really unfair. They're paying to market their competition when their competition's not paying for that marketing.
And this number I've crunched since 2012 when they decided to give the money to the chamber, and I did the grunt where I downloaded every chamber member, and then I analytically pulled it apart, put about who's in the city, who's not in the city, and the city of Sedona, the Chamber of Commerce's members, only 29% of the chamber members are in the city limits and in tourism, and the remainder of that number are non-tourism, not in the city. And yes, we have been marketing STRs forever. So when we look at these STRs and we say, why do we have so many STRs? But did people realize that the chamber's been marketing real estate? They've been going to Saudi Arabia and all these foreign countries, and they've been marketing real estate, Sedona real estate. And on their tourism bureau members are realtors, real estate companies, construction companies. And it even went so far, the past CEO created a new company, her private company, while she was the Sedona Chamber, on the Sedona Chamber CEO. And she created a company called Tourism International, Tourism Experts International, something like that. I've got all the docs. And she sold the model because she didn't sign a confidentiality or anything like that. She sold the model, raise your taxes, make more money, give it to me, and then I'll promote you to get more money. So the whole thing as raise taxes, marketing to raise more taxes is the plan.
And what I kind of look at that as basically her website, that whole marketing plan has Sedona right on it. So when she's going over to Saudi Arabia and all these other places, Sedona is the face of her whole company. So we're getting world through the process. Okay, we're gonna. So okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. We can kind of ahead and come up here, or I can just bring the microphone around to the people in the audience too.
I talk loud, so.
Early on, I think it was Shelley, you said groups that are being financially enriched by taxes.
Yeah, that
Can
was
you-
me. Okay.
Oh, you said it, okay.
Yeah, so there's a
Can
lot
you
of
give some examples other
good
than the
example,
chamber? I mean,
Chamber
they're
of
at the top of the
Commerce,
list. But
the library. There's what's some other ones? I'm trying to think. There's actually quite a few, but the Chamber of Commerce is the largest one. They're the largest ongoing contract, and the libraries underneath them. So they're the most obnoxious ones.
Anyone else?
Well, no, when the real estate goes up, our property taxes go up. And Sedona, because our property values are higher, we pay a higher property tax. So some people complain about the rents, but the rents are also driven by the property taxes and insurance and those kind of issues. So yeah, I see property taxes going up all the time. Coconino is a little different than Yavapai.
Well, why don't you address kind of, because the short-term rentals is also part of what's driving the population down. So why don't you address how the home rule affects those short-term rentals?
So when we talk about short-term rentals, a lot of people don't realize the city of Sedona, they say, oh, we have no say-so, we can't do anything about it. Well, that's not quite true. There are things they can do, but they choose not to. They roll out the red carpet for these STRs because if they take a big house and it becomes a party house, guess what? Sales tax, bed tax to the city of Sedona, 7%. And that 7% on a 2,000 a day house is a chunk of change. A room at a hotel, maybe a $200-$400 deal. They're making a significant amount more of income on STR. So that's why they failed to change the noise ordinance, and they failed to enforce the party, and that the owner must be present on those STRs. And they won't do anything with trash. Trash was a big issue in my last neighborhood, where the STR house, the Javelinas, had that trash every week, all over, everywhere, and they won't, and the owners weren't there, and their management company just come out and clean it up, and the neighbors have to clean it up. That's wrong.
Well,
An action.
let's take it a step further. Go backward, because actually, now the state's getting blamed for a lot, but this also still goes back to the way we were marketing a long time ago.
Absolutely. So we were marketing to the world, beautiful Sedona. We live in one of the most beautiful places. And when they go there and they market their realtors, we were primed. these people had money. They were ready to rock and roll. Some people bought hoping and hearing that we were going to let STRs go through before they even went through. But once it went through, people that wanted investment property, they said, whoa, okay, look at their tourism rates. You know, they have all those tourists there. We can make a fortune. And they took advantage of it, but they were ready to rock and roll.
And wouldn't you say, with the chamber being our primary marketing tool, it's what their whole base is
And-
hugely realtors.
And realtors and the husband of the ex-CEO, they were in realtors. There's a lot of realtors on there.
I don't, but we could probably get those numbers. Yeah, I think, okay. We might can find them after the...
I have looked at the sewer, and I did it with Jean Janks because she was like the guru of this, and sometimes she'd make my head spin around. She used to work for the city of Los Angeles. Well, there's a lot of money that comes out of the wastewater, and it goes into other departments, gets charged out. So they have money, but they, like the city manager, it was like $500,000, one department this. So there's a lot of money moving interdepartmental. So we really don't have a quick look at it from that.
Yeah, it looks like when you're they say to go online and go to their little transparency buttons, and we were looking through that the other day and dove into the wastewater, and there's like $9 million in that just kind of went out that, you know, you can't tell any accountability for it. So
Yeah, interdepartmental money's moving. So it's not clean and easy to look at. Department. Now, when we went to the chamber meeting today. We left when I came home. My husband said, "You're here? I thought you were there." And because he had it on the TV. And interesting, the very last portion of the chamber meeting, they were talking about a step, and then one of the city council people made it slip. He said, "Oh, we pay them for them to pay us," and that's what happens. We have pass-through, we have money going back and forth. So we pay the chamber for the workers of Sedona to go do something, and then they pay us back. So the county one that I've never seen before. And I have a background in medical devices and started companies all over the world. I've never seen it. So much untransparent garbage that we went to one and like, what? They paid that hotel $1,300 for one day? I was like flabbergasted. Wait, what's all this stuff going? You have to hunt for it. It's not
Well, the word today was this is a transitional year. This is a transitional year that we're having to pull back, pretty much making it pretty apparent that they realize the mistake of having the Chamber of Commerce over the tourism aspect of the city. So,
But I will say that there are counselors that will try and push this bureau back onto the chamber. Because Jessica Williamson said, well, we have to revamp the bureau. We, the people, every group, every organization, we have to insist on the proper tourism policy. And it cannot be with the Chamber of Commerce. And I don't care if we do a referendum. I don't care what we do. We have to do something. We have to stop it because it's so wrong. It hinders our people. It hinders the businesses and it hinders the...
and we start by the no vote on home rule.
Yes.
And so we get the vote and the voice back on how we're moving forward first. And then once we get that out, there's, we keep coming together as a community to stand strong in our voice and in our, if we come together on our own and we go to the chamber meetings and we keep saying, I'm representing 50 people. I'm representing 300 people. I'm representing 500 people, and our voice becomes solid. You know, that solidarity in our voice, they can't not listen at that level, and especially when it then becomes easy to put measures on the ballot to vote because we've got the people already in play. Quickly, we can have those, you know, we can have the signatures that we need to get stuff on the ballot.
So we need to get more petitions. We need to, for example, when I did the petition for the trash, it stopped it right away because the numbers were too high. And one person shows up at city council representing, you know, thousands of people. It's not going to happen. But there's a couple laws that we have to get as a ballot measures to make change, and we're ready to do it right after home rule fails.
And the citizens engagement meetings of 5 to 8 people to me are about worthless. And I think we need to bring back the town hall type meetings or something along those lines. Just some kind of meetings where there are more people engaged on a regular basis. And we do it. We're already doing it. We do it here, and Kelly's doing it. We pull it together, and we actually start making our voices heard in a larger forum. And then, you know, get them coming to the table. Let the city council hear us. Correct.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
they're still accountable to us for the next vote. They're still accountable to us.
Where we have to be engaged and connected and ready to act at all times. If we don't, we'll be in big trouble. And so when people say about home rule, you know, we do this, you know, every 4 years, we cannot let this stop now. We have got to make sure that we are all connected in any way, shape, or form, and that we take action. That that's how they got in. So I was here, and I was like shocked. It's like I get this email, and somebody comes into my business and says, "Oh, we want all the bed tax and the sales tax." I'm like, "You out of your mind? What are you talking about? You're a chamber of commerce. Why would you get the sales tax and bed tax?" And they pounded and pounded and pounded. And when they went to City Hall, they didn't go with one person. People were standing outside. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Give the chamber the money. I thought I was in the twilight zone. We need to do the same thing. We need to hit the streets. We need to do whatever it takes. We need to raise money. We need to take care of this, and we need to network it on a regular basis in order to stay on top of the game. If we don't, you're going to see exactly what's going to happen. They're going to know you're away, you're not paying attention, and they'll just go ahead and...
And there's a reason the home rule always gets put on the August ballot. The majority of our people who would go to the polls are gone. And so to me, that's even something that needs to be put on the ballot, that nothing major in our city can ever be voted on again in August. You know, it's just the wrong time to put it on the ballot. So we need to be be prudent, and know what we're going to get together as a city, as a community, and get initiatives launched after this too. But it starts with that no on home rule. That's where it has to start. And then we have all sorts of other things that we can stay together with the momentum that we're generating, and we can pull it together to where we get things lined out to give the people more of a voice.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm. No.
Good question.
Yeah, but it's a great question, and it's true. So what they're going to tell you is that new candidates can make change. That's not true. These multi-year projects and the policies that are put in place are consent items only. They're approved. They can't go back and undo a big one. They would have to really have a meltdown. So the easiest way to hit the reset button, shut it down, make sure they make the right decisions is without home rule. If you get somebody like the mayor in there and they have 2 years, their 2 years is up. Their hands are tied for the 2 years. They won't be able to make one of those changes. And if I was ever going to run for any seat. I would definitely not do it if the city had home rule, and I wouldn't want that burden of the tax and spend. And some of the candidates, they're afraid to speak no. But if they look at it, and I was a production manager, so I had a budget for the city, and I had tons of employees, and I had no problem running a balance, and I had no problem saving money, being more efficient, doing quality products. But if you put that unit of measure that they're afraid that they're not going to have money to spend, their job is not about spending money. Their job is about making sure the right policies, the right procedures, and the right balance is for our community. It's not about spending the money.
Yeah.
But it's a very good point, because some candidates are afraid. And I disagree that they should not, that they shouldn't speak about it. They should learn about it. They should know how it functions, how they're going to be protected with a no on home rule. But with home rule, they're going to get a lot more issues that they're going to have to deal with. And if they see, like, they didn't want to have a particular item, and they didn't stop it with the no on home rule, it's gonna come across there, this is a consent item. A, B, C, yes or no? And they all say yes.
Go ahead.
So last year from 62, and they wanted to take it. No, it's due to all these shuttles and transit. They want to bring federal transit and all this stuff in. But it's a very different. Okay. Population and inflation. But then these other expenditures get added on top. I think 400 a month, 500, 500. Oh, she doesn't, I thought she made it. There you go. No. I think,
You know, that's a right.
well, the money, when you follow the money, is really in the city council gifting certain groups tons of money. No, I mean, I talk about the local businesses. So let's talk about small grants. This, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Tiffany Jewelers. That's the first thing I'm thinking of, the box. But, well, first of all, when you look at Andy's audit, was less finance, change big dollar. And Steve Segner, of course, for so. But when we go back, it's very difficult to articulate Paris has no services. So when we look at other cities and towns like us that are our size and that are growing, they typically are on permanent base, or they have a voter-approved tax limit that doesn't allow the city council to go up. So what we did is, when you look at their position for home rule, the reason why they want home rule is for tourism. But in life, there is a balance. And if you put put in all tourism programs and projects as projects, then what you're doing is you're pushing everything into tourism, and you're not nurturing the residents or the families and those type of things.
And at the time, my previous wife was a teacher, and I would say, well, wait a minute, we're going into this massive reduction. The economy is compressing. I mean, money is going to dry up. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, as they were completing these schools, they had lost 100 students at Good Park and 75 at the middle school, and all that happened. So I agree with what you're saying. This is the time to pull the reins back a little bit. So what really concerns me about all that is it all just happened. Just continued straight down that path. We're going to, ban the torpedoes and build these schools and build this, the Sedona Tornado Center. And all of that was done with contractors that were not local. In fact, it was Shelby, Martinez, Tucson, Tempe. There was Vegas contractors. You got $87 million in bonds. The local construction collapsed in 2009. I mean, we had contractors jumping off their pickup trucks at lumber mills because there was no work. And yet all that money went elsewhere.
And I
So-
remember that, yeah.
So follow the money, and that's why I wanted to tell them, we have $112 million. We have 9,800 people in our population, which is the benchmark of what we're allotted through the state to be funded.
No, that's through
9,800
home
people.
Home rule is the home rule allows them the 112 million.
Yes, but the state's going to assess us on our population on inflation each year.
Oh,
What we're going to get, and then we're going to be able to approach a one-time multi-year, I assume, a allotment to fill in the blanks, because there's obviously blanks. 9,800 people in Sedona costs a bit more than 9,800 people in Eloy, just because of the tourism and the business construction. So what's happening with the money? I mean, we're not. What's happening? $400 a month.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the budget yet, but I know the city council is very keen on purchasing some land.
Yes, actually,
The cultural.
the cultural park is in that budget for like about $20 million.
And then there's another million for citywide software program, which I don't understand why we need a citywide.
But all these people that want to maintain home rule, not all, but let's say the city council members want to maintain home rule at $400 a month. They want to maintain this it feels kind of like a slush fund. It's kind of like an unaccounted for, amount of money that's just sitting out there, it's cookie jars and matches and other things. Chamber gets paid and they pay the city back, pay them back. Well, that's, come on.
Yeah.
And in the
Hospitality industry, the tourism industry, it's very common for people to give coupons and to give free rooms and free dinners and that kind of stuff.
I had to get a medical thing done about 6 or 7 years ago, and I had to go to Tucson. And I had a friend that I did a lot of favors for the hotel she worked for, just because of the nature of my business. And she says, "Oh, you're going to be there for 3 days. We're picking up your hotel." I said, "Oh, no, I don't want anything." She said, "No, this is common. It's not a big deal. I'm paying for your room."
So the $400
You don't know.
amount that the city
I
council
think
member
another thing,
gets.
I mean, to me, I wouldn't say they're on the take or corrupt. I'm not going to ever say I have any evidence of that. They're more philanthropic. Like, for example, they want to take all the city buses or city cars and trucks and go electric because they're green, and so they're buying $100,000 pickup truck, and $300,000 buses, and for the good of the climate, of the planet.
But something's incentivizing the system, and something has to incentivize the other system, the Nova home rule as well.
city manager. Now,
Presents to the council?
yes, and what basically happens is that budget gets all drawn up, and from what Scott Jablow had made sure to point out is that they don't see the budget before it's posted on the website for the people to see, which is 6 days before they're spending 2 days deciding on a multi-million-dollar budget on how to run our city. I have it in writing all over social media and on Sedona Biz. They have literally 6 days to go over the budget and then 2 days going over at line item. And they sit down one-on-one with the city manager prior to that 2 days of going over at line item, I believe. And I asked him that for clarity and haven't heard yet. But if that's the case, I just saw them going over the chamber's budget diligently for 2 days. And it was a cluster. And that was just the chamber's, what the chamber was presenting after a base of that budget had pretty much already been decided and approved. 1.5 million of it was pretty much already gone over with the fine-tooth comb. The rest of it was just re-going over it, deciding why priorities had changed, and then looking at the alternative budget. And they decide our $112 million budget in the same fashion. And usually the people are brought in, like 5 to 8 people in like a little group to kind of go over stuff. But they didn't do that with our budget this year. The people don't get to see that at all. And they used, the pandemic of the COVID as an excuse that they didn't do that part.
Would we be able to address that? I guess the point being is, so it's not necessarily, I'm not saying that there's people on the pay, although I'm sure follow the money. There's something going on. There's too much money. And I don't want, I know most of the politicians.
Well, it's a breeding ground for things to be able to go wrong when there is no accountability with the monies. And it's like, and like I said, would you running your business or even your household go say, oh, I'm going to give you my checkbook and I'm going to walk away and I don't care how you spend it? Would you do that and expect to have money when you got back? I mean, you wouldn't. And then what we've done is we're just handing over that checkbook, giving them credit cards to boot to put us in debt, and then saying, we trust you.
But the ones that are making the decision, the council, from what you're saying, isn't made the decision, it's the city manager or their.
It's the staff, yeah. And I'm just going to,
Tim Ernst, used to play poker with him years
yeah,
ago.
and yeah, one time I was in,
Never asked me for any advice on how to spend the money, though.
he didn't? Yeah, well, it's funny, one time I was in his office and I was talking to him about the bridal fair, and he says, well, how you doing on the bridal fair? I said, we're doing great. And then he says, I got a slush fund. I could help you out. And I didn't really understand what he meant because I thought that was just not an option in my brain. I went home and told my husband. My husband went, oh my gosh, he was trying to buy you, and he goes, and you're so dingy. You're like, no. I firmly believe that we teach people how to fish. You never hand them a fish. And I'm just going to say the private sector and the public sector are totally different. My world, none of these people would ever survive.
Well, to keep Sedona beautiful, we met John Thompson said, we're rich. Sedona right now is rich. And there's just not a limit to the money that can be spent to try to save our planet. And I thought, this man should not be in charge.
Can I say one little thing?
Yeah.
Because the city had asked me to design bike racks. I'm an artist, and I do certain design stuff. And they called me a few weeks ago,
Well,
Just on a simple bike. And there's a
But
need
I
for
say
it.
it has to charge electric bikes because 5 years from now, 80% of every bike in this community will be electric.
And, we have friends that have
And the electric
electric.
charging doesn't come from underground breaking up sidewalk. It comes from sustainable solar, so that it's self-contained. And isn't that feel good green
See,
stuff?
that to me should have been a grant. That's what the grants are.
Hey, no one's, the city
For
manager
startups
called me
and
with a
grants.
grant or a slush fund or.
How much does it cost to do one bike ride?
Depends.
I mean, give me a round figure.
Well, they want them artistic. So they want them artsy and they want them, so that.
Okay, if they were just functional.
I would imagine you could get a functional bike rack on Amazon for, a few $100s.
With the solar and everything.
No, of course.
No, I'm talking about with the
Of course.
electric charging, not just.
I'm not a technical soul.
Okay, all right.
I'm an ideas guy. So I told them the only way I would get involved is if it met that criteria. And I thought that that was really simple. Not, I'm not saying that they haven't emailed me half a dozen times about more dialogue about that. But nobody was running to me with a grant. Nobody was saying they have a slush fund to cover some of that. And the truth of the matter is, we can put standard bike racks out there. And they can just be regular everyday bike racks. They don't have to be fancy. But if we're gonna have green cars at the sewer plant, and we're gonna do all this green stuff, why don't we do the simplest green things that we can
Yeah.
do right now?
Right now, and I don't get it. But,
That would actually serve the residents, right? Because they're the ones that
Well, it would
run
give us,
around there on electric
we
bikes.
could get on the chamber side as a green city, is just what that would
Right.
be.
but I wanted to bring up the grant program because that was one thing that the city
Responded back.
Yeah, and so they were basically saying, I said, I didn't understand the grant program. Well, I do understand the grant program, but I don't understand this grant program. It's a small business grant program, and one of the companies, I try not to use any names, they started out at the cultural park. I did all the history on the cultural park. I have all the land exchanges, the forest land, the BLM docks, the whole kit and caboodle. I put SedonaCulturalPark.com together because people wanted to know the financials, what happened to it. So that has a big story. But part of that big story is that the seed money for the International Film Festival started there. And once it got there, the seed money, well, of course, the cultural park went out of business, and the International Film Festival started getting grant money from the city of Sedona when they were on their own. Well, they have really excelled. They're an incredible organization. They make over $2 million a year. So why are we giving them grant money? That's my only thing. And I didn't want to say the name because we knew they were filming, but that's the reality. I'm not talking about a small company starting out that needs seed money. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the repeated ones. When you see the Chamber of Commerce getting grant money and getting $3 million a year too, and then you see the repeat people that don't need it, like the music, chamber music, and these other ones, they're really quite sustainable. They're doing well. Why don't we take that seed money and use it to create new industry, to bring industries in and support those industries so we have something that makes Sedona more about Sedona? So, and I just don't get that capacity. No, this is the way we do it. I think we have more to offer and more to bring to the table.
Well, and to help some of these talented people that live here that have unique businesses
Exactly.
versus the lady who does the art festival at the high school. Every year she gets $10,000.
She gets grant money every year, and she has for 30 years. I used to go to the
Could have bought her 10.
Yeah. So, and then I want to talk about, like, there's some cities and towns, they'll take a building, and it will be a big building, and they'll make it a co-op building. They'll say, okay, we're going to we'll get a photographer, we'll get a musician, we'll get these kind of people, and they make co-ops, and they give them the seed money, and they feed new industries or new ideas, and we don't do any of that. So we just suppress things. We push everybody into a box. And you can only be innovative when you're unlimited and uncontrolled. If you're limited and controlled, you cannot be innovative. If somebody were to tell me when I was 20 years old, when a gentleman came up to me and says, I want you to move to Switzerland and help me start a biological heart valve company, if somebody would have told me no, I would have said, you're crazy. I went home and I told my dad, I'm dropping out of college, I'm moving to Switzerland, I'm starting a biological heart valve company. And I did, and it still exists today. And his expression on his face was like, rolled his big blue eyes, and he said, well, that's my daughter, Donna, you know. And, but you have to have innovation. You can't say you can't. If you say you can't, you won't. If you open the door and you can, you should. So I'm saying we're suppressing people, we're limiting them and controlling them in this narrative that we can't introduce other things in Sedona.
And there's, no, you're fine. Yeah.
I'll just finish with this because I think my first question's lost.
Okay.
But there is something that is going on that is not traceable. There is an unforeseen.
I agree with you.
We have an election of city council.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm sure we'll have it. Will that change anything? Will that change our ability to scrutinize what I think is corrupt or feel my intuitive self that this is corrupt, something's corrupt? These guys want this too bad. There's something else that's behind all this. Will a new body of political people be able to change that? And if it's not going to be at the council level, which it sounds like everybody agrees the council is going to decide, the city council doesn't decide the budget, that's the city attorney. Can we put into a movement to change that?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it has oversight, overview.
Yeah.
And that is part of the things that the
So,
community
yeah.
can be educated about.
Absolutely, and that's what Just Facts was put in for. So they kind of cringe when I put in a request for information because they know what I'm going to do with it. So I took the citizens engagement program, I dissected it out. We have non-residents in the citizens engagement who've got money moving. They're getting gift cards. Why in the hell are we giving gift cards to the volunteers of the citizens engagement? So we do have movement, we do have things that we have to do with, but we do need 4 people to be in there, 4 new people in order to get a majority. 2 of them have to give us the ability to make the change. We are going to try and get some laws put in place to help restrict them so they can't pull this again. But 2 of them can get us on the platform, and as a group, as multi-groups, we can go forward and we can say we want 1 hour of your time requested from 2 city council, and we can come up with a plan and say, this is our findings. We're finding the gifts to the, even though it's supposed to be something warm and cozy, it's just not, gift cards is just kind of too easy to do it. You don't really know if they get to the,
They're just so philanthropic, they just put
Yeah.
money out like a monograph parade. Brian Folks just came back from Jackson Hole, Wyoming,
okay.
and in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, they have a resident committee that
That's what I want.
decides how the bed tax is spent, not advises, they decide.
That's how they should have more of a say-so. And they should, like, what they do have is they have what's a district. When I said the district, that makes it, the district decides what those taxes are. They have to be voter approved in some capacity. It has to have a check and a balance. You can't give all the power to city council, let them raise the taxes, do whatever they want with the taxes without having some restrictive counter control. And my father was in government, and he always said, check and balance, and it doesn't matter who you like. And yes, he always audited every single dollar. And if he found a discrepancy of one, they were in trouble.
Yeah, we have a city manager system, so the city manager has a lot of power here. And the councilors are like, oh, you're wonderful, whatever you say, just, that is where everybody's.
Well, the city manager, the way I understand it, there's funds all over, in all different areas of the management, of the running of the businesses. But it's like, of those funds, the city manager can move money across the funds wherever they see fit, for the most part.
My guess is the city manager's calendar
Well, we go back to what you were saying about the construction companies. It's just at the chamber meetings, the last two chamber meetings, they have gone over some videos that they solicited the chamber to create for educational videos. And they've really slapped their hand that we asked for educational videos. These are feel-good videos. They're marketing videos. And we don't want to use these videos we just paid $70,000 to $75,000 for. So what are we going to, they're just tabled. We may use them later if we ever need to market again, but we can't use those. And when you look at the company behind it, that company is out of Maine, I believe it was. And then their partners, when you look at it, it's related to the UN. What is it? The World Tourism Organization. So it's like they're utilizing companies through some kind of group that they're involved in, that they're plugging in and getting these people and coming in to do something. They paid $70,000 to an out-of-state company to do 3 videos that were completely off the mark on what we asked for. So there's a huge breakdown, and this company can't even re-edit them or redo them. It's just like scrap them. $70,000 gone.
So, yeah.
And when they're trying to add to that, that like we want a video, we would still like to have that video. The first thing that comes to mind, somebody finally said, could we use a local company in the chamber? Oh yeah, we'll call Sedona Now. No thought that there might be 30 people, 30 videographers in Sedona that would love to have that contract, that could do a better job possibly than Sedona Now. Why wouldn't that be a bid contract to every videographer that wants to participate in Sedona? It's like, why is it they just get to say who gets it right off the bat and nobody bats an eye?
Well, the Staples manager came.
Right.
And he said, "Did we do your printing?" Instead of you sending it.
Yeah, we were there.
Can you tell me what the 7 services are in Flagstaff?
I don't know them by heart for each one, but they have trash. I think they have their own fire department, that type of thing. Yeah. Ours are
Right.
districts, so the city doesn't have anything to do with it, and the only 2 services they have. But there's some, like Cottonwood. Let's talk about Cottonwood. They're kind of hot on fire, Cottonwood. So Cottonwood, we think, oh, Cottonwood. When I moved here, Cottonwood was smaller than Sedona, and it was older, but it was just kind of chukka. But they own their own fire department. They have their own everything, and they're really on top of taking care of their residents. So while sometimes I've had people tell me that live in Cottonwood that they really love the services they get from Cottonwood.
And they're on permanent base.
And they're growing, and they are on permanent base. So the permanent base, I think it looked high to me. It looked similar to Sedona's, but they're higher population, and they have all those additional services. And that plays a big part. But they are permanent base, which is, I thought it was like 100,000, but I could be wrong because I was looking at all the cities and towns, and I thought, do I want to put it on this? And I thought, nah, don't do it, because you'll just.
This happens in oranges because our fire is a whole different.
Yeah, fire, library, schools,
Yeah,
they're
we
all.
can't. And those services are critical in the financial analysis of these companies. If they're not having, you have 7 in Cottonwood and Sedona has 2, that's not apples to apples. That's a whole completely different world. They own their own water company. They have the wastewater. They have the airport. I do know that. Yeah. So they have a lot of ownership, and what they've done is they've created a nice little network for their residents and their support for the residents. They may even own a cemetery.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your question, so that's really what I wanted to get to, is that service relationship with the finances. So for Sedona to have such a high financial amount and yet have no services for the residents, that's where the imbalance would be. So if they had golf course or some other element, like an airport or any of it, our airport is county, it's not even part of the city. So here we have a city, we call a city, but they don't have one more service than the unincorporated DOC. They don't have any tax. They don't have city tax. They have,
And we share the same tax amount that Cottonwood does, so I mean, there's apples and apples there.
so, but look at the services. And so, of course, you would expect your sales tax to go up if you have five more services. I mean, to own your own airport and own all your elements is a lot of money. And they do have a beautiful, beautiful community center. A lot of the people in Sedona go to that community center. Henry used to go swimming there, you know, because he loved it so much. I'm like, drive all the way to Cottonwood to go swimming, you know.
And I just want to thank you all for letting me take part in that. I didn't mean to it, and I just came aware, I have a lot of opinions, and you all did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. No, your questions were great. Thank you.
Questions, we loved your questions. We like this kind of questions.
What's your name if you're an artist?
Mark Feldfeld, I'm probably one of the artists, and some folks here probably screamed at they awarded me the faculty on and I know that wasn't a popular thing in the community, so.
Regardless of if it's popular in the community or not, you know, it's wonderful for you and it's a wonderful opportunity. We wouldn't ever, no matter who's griping, they would never be upset with the artist who did it.
So do you think Sedona is supportive of the artist community?
I think they're out of touch.
And why?
Well, I know that Nancy talked to me a couple of years when we were doing uptown to get involved with the median design and the roundabouts, and I was like, I didn't feel it, you know, and she was like, why not? I said, because to me, a roundabout in uptown should be a rubber tomahawk and a t-shirt. I said, there's no soul, it's just doing so fun, and I didn't feel it for art. I just think we've lost track of it. I think it's commercialized, but I think it's at all levels. You know, the merchants, you know, they've all sold out to, you know, this is Navajo jewelry. Not even the Navajos were basically, you know, taken from others anyways. There's no Zuni, there's no Hopi. I mean, these are the true public artists. They're not others.
Well, that's one thing that when I moved here, we had a business in Uptown. We had one in West Sedona, and the Uptown one just had so much character and fun. I mean, it really was fun. You know, it's like all of a sudden there would be a native sitting in front with their wolf, and there was just so much happening all the time, but it wasn't as restrictive. And we moved here from California thinking that Sedona was going to be the Laguna Beach for the state. And the galleries started shrinking and going away. The gallery owners came weekends, and it was mobbed, and they would be shopping. And I mean, and I shopped the galleries too, and we loved the art. And so that's why we moved here. And those are all gone now. So I think we're getting away from the artists. I think that we need to figure out how to get back the arts here, and how do we bring the native back into this area.
Is that why we lost the high-end tourists?
Yes.
Well, I
Because
mean, listen, don't get me started on the chamber, because I've had a problem with the chamber long before you all started complaining about it. The chamber has been promoting us. You say now that they're promoting us worldwide. I'll take that over the way the chamber's built almost 15 years ago, which was day trippers, which filled their coolers in Phoenix, left them in the canyon, and then went to Circle K for a 12-pack on the road. I mean, that still is the extent of a lot of the tourism that's been generated through our tax dollars. So don't get me started on that. But you know, it's a big question as far as the arts. You know, Rob Adams, and that's how me and her were buddies, and John O'Brien, you know, knew all those guys. It was about, Rob approached me when 89 was going to be taken over by the city. We were going to buy it at 89. And he said, Mark, we want to design street lights, but we want dark skies, we want this. And I was like, okay, Mark, here's what I think we should do. And he goes, what should we do? I said, take all our artists and have individual artists do 5 or 6 or 8 designs of specific
I've never heard of anybody being upset about, really? But I think more the cost, not the art.
We're blocking the view.
You know, that's, no, it shouldn't be. And so that, but I think that people, yeah.
The amount of money that has been spent by our budgets on consultations, consultants for traffic studies. Are you kidding me? I am a fraction, I'm a down payment.
You're nothing compared
On that, compared to that, and what do we have for our traffic studies? We've got nothing, we haven't moved it, we haven't moved it in an inch.
You're parroting her.
Well, I just want to, before you leave, I want to tell you one thing on those traffic studies. You're right. And I think that what we're sensing with people, if they did complain, that it's not about that in particular, but let's look at the traffic studies. The same vendor over and over and over. You know, and so we won't pay an artist, but we'll pay for 25 traffic studies in 5 years or some ridiculous amount, you know.
I promise you my art's dimes on the dollar, you know, cost-wise.
I think that I know it was a sour taste in the artist's mouth because that just kind of takes away from the art. But no, I mean, but no, what I'm saying is that was kind of like that straw that broke the camel's back on all the other things everybody was. It's just that something else that they could jump on because they're so upset. It's not that they're not supporting the artists.
I'm going to finish with this because I had a conversation with Scott Jowell, who is a friend. I'm not going to say any more than that, but he talks to me about all this stuff. And he was telling me, listen, you know, got to get rid of those parking spaces up and up and go 2 lanes. I said, I told you that 3-4 years ago. I said, you redesigned the uptown thing and you left 14 parking spaces on the northbound lane to restrict it to 1 lane going into the canyon. When you could have taken those 14 places, 2 lanes,
But how much extra did that cost us, you know? That had just done it right the first place. Yeah. Well,
Because it pays twice.
well, it pays twice, but it also bogs down, it also bogs down the businesses in construction for so much longer.
What I don't like, I used to own a business in Uptown, and it had a lot of charm back then. And the center island there is just so invasive. To me, it's not shoppable. I can't ride your bike. It's not walkable. It just looks so restricted and limited that that I don't get. Why would they have put that there?
Probably just bypass on top of it, and just make it completely just, bikes and walk, it shouldn't be any traffic. But that's, at the pace that the community's going, that's 30 years from now, that conversation. Rather than having that conversation today and looking at the 5-year plan, and I know people hate cold roofs, but you can do all that electronically. I mean, it's all, we could have done it in
Well,
70.
it can't just be taking money, it's gotta be, I'm sorry, if the
Well,
town is
that's
full,
money.
you can't come, nobody else can come in until somebody leaves.
Well,
I mean, otherwise it's just more revenue for the
The shuttle service that doesn't impregnate the community in the center of town, the
Right,
parking lots,
right.
on the outskirts of town.
yeah.
And we make people either pay to drive their car in, or you park and take our shuttle service, which is sponsored by our Chamber of Commerce and all the tourist businesses that we want to.
For years, the
Coronado
bridge had, toll booths.
You
know?
came from California, I took my family to Disneyland every summer. And every year I have to save everything. For lunch is this much, parking's this much, hotels this much. It's just the price of going out and getting entertainment. We've allowed this to be a complete sewer for public access for as long as I've been here, and much longer. And people need to pay for this.
So we don't need any more revenue.
Well,
That's
well,
what's contributing to
here's,
this.
back to your ADOT question, and I appreciate what you're saying. But if we follow the money and we share that revenue of $30 per car with Forest Service, ADOT, community
Yeah.
assistance, everybody's on.
Yeah, and so
You don't have to have such high sales tax, but you're right.
It's how you sell it, right? Isn't it how you sell it?
Yeah.
I mean, they want that money.
But we need to have a hop-on, hop-off bus that's double-decker where they can take the most
We had
incredible
those,
pictures.
how long have you been here? Don't you remember?
Double-decker buses?
Yeah, we had the red buses, not the red ones. Rob Adams got them. They were like, no, they're different than the trolley. The city actually owned them. They're actually still sitting up on shelves somewhere. I mean, we
Really?
had buses that were all paid for, that were to pick up tourists and run them here, run them there, and they were gonna have, kind of these sponsored.
You've been here 30 years, I didn't know.
No, they haven't.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they just let them, they probably sold them off, you
Nobody
think?
used them?
Nobody, well, it's just.
Oh, that was the Roadrunner, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I remember, and they implemented this Roadrunner, and nobody rode it.
Nobody
So
bought
how
it.
did it actually work? I'm curious.
It didn't work, so they,
What was it supposed to do?
it was, I don't even know, I mean, they were supposed to
Well,
go,
it was supposed to be a city and commercial thing, so it was going to be done in conjunction with hotels, tourism, but the city was sponsoring.
But I mean, did it go just up and down the road like a bus, or did it,
It went to.
It went, I think they even took some.
was it
down
chartered,
the
or just made a big?
Yeah.
you know, but it was at a time,
There was like 3 or 4 of them, I'm not kidding, they had like.
yeah, I remember, they were,
Plenty of peas.
there was a road